Hey everyone, welcome. I am doing Build Your Dream Network, the virtual water cooler live today because yes, magic of technology. I have the team from Vital Voice and we are going to continue the conversation that we had the other day online, but because we were talking presence, authenticity, and they are amazing vocal and presentation skills coaches. I have worked with them. That's not the only reason why they're amazing, because they work with me, but we thought we got to take this out of 280 characters and we have to show the goods. So please use, if you're over there on YouTube or you're on Periscope, use the chat function, ask us questions, but otherwise we're going to talk. So come and join us at the water cooler. This is going to be fun. So Casey, good morning. Julie, in particular, good morning.
Good early morning, yes.
It's not obnoxiously early. It's a little more teen pop, a little less like crazy, awful punk. I don't know. I mean, I like whatever. It's early. I don't even have my metaphor there.
So we finished off our last virtual water cooler together. We were talking authenticity and presence. Let me start with this. How do we set ourselves up for success using video? Because we are really relying on it.
There are so many different things that you can do to set yourself up for success that are, just like little checkboxes. And we're not usually a fan of checkboxes, but this is a good place to use, tips and tricks. So tip number one, make sure that your camera is at the right height for you, whether that means putting your laptop on a stack of books or getting a stand or whatever you need to do to make your camera at the right height. That's just kind of tip number one, because it makes you look like a human, as opposed to like, I'm looking down at everyone, which is very awkward, or like I'm weirdly like crouched down looking up at my camera. You want your camera to be at eye level.
You want to stop for a sec?
Yeah.
I'm gonna restart this because I'm just getting a little note about my internet connection. So let's restart this broadcast because we can do that.
We can.
Okay. Let me just do my internet, and just so if we do something silly, I'll be right back. But let's just see, because I'm just worried. I don't want anyone to miss our thoughts. Just a sec.
She frozen. We're still moving.
Yeah, she's doing something with the internet.
See, we all roll with the punches.
Yes, exactly. There's so much tech.
Exactly. We're okay.
We're rolling there, because that's what you got.
Oh, someone said 8th Avenue. Oh, okay. Well, we reset it. This is, you know what? Technology when you want it to work. All right, let's go back. You set yourself up for success. I set myself up for success. I rebooted my internet this morning and I closed out all of my apps. That's part of my step for success. Casey started from the top again on Step for Success. And thank you, 8th and Home Real Estate and Relocation, for telling us that everything's good on our end. Thank you for letting us know. We appreciate that.
Really. We have sirens outside, which is a very familiar sound in New York right now. So part of setting yourself up for your success is the technical elements, like making sure your camera is at the right height. I used to use a stack of books. Now I have an actual like computer stand, but a stack of books works just fine. You want the camera to be at eye height so that you are actually looking at the people that you're talking to. The other thing that for me works is like, if I'm going to be on camera, I want to look nice. So like I put on makeup, and lately like bright lipstick's been making me happy. So like that's a thing that I learned about myself during this time. But that doesn't mean that everybody is going to have the same, like not everybody wants to be like zhuzhed to the nines for a video meeting, and that's fine. Like it's whatever sets you up for success.
Right. What about you, Julie?
For me, I think the biggest thing is something I like to call "don't push your cart at Walmart." And I say this because just in grad school, we had a 24-hour Walmart, and that's what you do when you're living in the middle of a cornfield on a Saturday night in grad school and there's nothing around. You go to Walmart, and there's just always people kind of that hunker on their cart, pushing it around the store like they don't know how to stand on their own. And see that a lot with people getting on camera. It's like, okay, I'm on camera. So you collapse everything in the front of your body. So just remembering, it's not about hoisting yourself up, because that's a whole other different thing, but it's, am I in alignment? Am I sitting up? Am I allowing my breath to be able to both expand in my body and speak on an exhale? So that's really big. And then in connection to that, something that we've talked about on our podcast together, and Casey and I talk about a lot, is it's an on-camera technique and also a space-taking technique, which is usually behind the scenes. We call it "Let Your Butt Be Big," which is one of my favorite things.
Let's do that right now. Okay.
So first of all, we need to demonstrate what not letting your butt be big looks like. Now,
Okay.
This is something that we see a lot when we talk to people, more on an in-person level, but it absolutely applies to camera too. We have this thing that we like to call good girl posture, which is like a reach and hold. It's like, look how eager I am. Look how prepared I am. I'm ready to lean in, right? It's very tense, but it feels powerful because you feel like you're doing good posture. Now, the opposite of that, the full opposite of that would be like slouchy posture, right? Like just kind of destroying.
I don't hate that on you, Casey. I gotta say. I don't hate that on you.
I don't lounge. You gotta keep the line, right? This is like the line. But the sort of like energetic center of that is, as we like to call it, let your butt be big. So Julie, please explain to us how one can let their butt be big and not like destroy themselves.
So let your butt be big, really simply, is about remembering that we're sitting in a chair and there's points of contact of your body on that chair. For some reason, we like to do the work for everything else, including, fundamental laws of physics. So we are constantly just putting this effort and holding ourselves up, when in fact the chair is a lot more equipped to do that. So essentially it's letting the chair take your weight, but also we tend to do these really unconscious micro contractions. And for women, that's a lot from, riding public transportation. I don't want to let that person next to me touch my body right now. And that's even exacerbated in these times. So it's really thinking about your butt width. These micro contractions we do, they make us feel like we're in control of how large we look on screen. And all they do, I'll see if I can do a demonstration that'll translate. Okay, I don't know if you can hear, but my voice just went up a little bit. All I did was squeeze my butt. So it's this tension that creeps up through your whole body. And you can probably see it in my face or like my jaw or any of those things that tend to reveal what kind of tension. I don't love that. So now I just let my butt be big in my chair. I've got my foundation. I can grow out from there, and I'm much more connected to my breath and my presence. It's really, really simple.
Direction, not a destination.
That's
right?
Yeah.
Reaching and holding, then we're tensing everything up.
Reaching and holding also, I think, keeps us focused in our vertical space instead of our horizontal and our front and back sagittal space. And when we're on camera, I think it's especially important to realize I'm not locked into just because I can see my camera right here. I can only move here. I've got this whole screen that I can take. I can move back. I can move forward. I can still move the same way I would live. This isn't a whole different animal where suddenly, oh God, I'm in a box. I'm not in a box.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of the movements can be distracting. I try to make sure that I'm moving this way, but not, trying to do too much of. Then your hand starts to do, if I want to do my usual hand movements, let's do them over here. Not here, because all of a sudden because of the camera, it starts to be kind of weird. So
well, that would be really organic if we were meeting you in person, that your hands would be out here. You would never try and focus your hands right here so you could make your point just to the camera. We don't do that. It's again going back to, even in real life, the shifting movements or the nervous hand gestures don't translate really well, but deliberate movement always translates well, even if it's, quote, incorrect.
movement that's supported with.
Give us an example. I'm like, tell us more, gurus. Tell us more.
So the question that we get all the time, right, is what do I do with my hands? Like that's sort of a classic public speaking question. The kind of inconvenient answer is if you're focused on what you're saying and you're focused on who you're saying it to, the hands will move naturally. It's when we try to control the hands and we do like, oh, I need to make them think that I look thoughtful, so I'm going to give like a steeple, or like I'm gonna like. There's like there are a few hand gestures that you see in like every TED Talk. And I don't know if like there's some sort of like TED Talk list in the sky of like
the wagon wheel,
right? And here, right? And the thing about these is that all of these hand gestures are hand gestures that we do in real life anyway. That's why they've been codified. It's the codification that makes them look unnatural. It's the like, I am trying to prove my point, and therefore I'm like overly demonstrating that like makes it look, again, you're giving the signs and signifiers of I know what I'm talking about, and but what it reads as is I'm trying to prove myself, or I'm like trying to put on the costume of good public speaking.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking like, as soon as you said hands, I always think of the royal family and, you know, sort of the, like, does anyone hold a purse this way? No, we don't.
Aspirationally.
No, well, I aspirationally to do the Queen's wave, but you know, it's always sort of this awkward hands folded in front with like a little handbag. And I'm like, who holds their bag that way? I think it feels like you're doing that to not move your hands.
Well,
or scratch or something.
Well, you know what?
It also like adjacent to the handshake. Have you ever had somebody offer you their hand like this and you're just like, am I supposed to touch that snake mouth coming at me? Like, what's going on here? I don't know.
Hopefully that type of handshaking will be killed as part of what is going on right now.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of significant changes in the world, and that may be one of them for sure.
Anyway, Casey, you had a real point on this with the royal family, and
yes.
It feels very protective. It feels like don't get in my space, which makes perfect sense to me. Like if you're a public figure and you're used to needing to kind of keep everything very, just very like chill on the surface. Yeah, it feels like a protective gesture to me.
Or fidget gesture. Okay, so all right, so you've given us this awesome tip of getting like big in our butt. All right, so I'm doing that. All right, is there some breathing, something we should do before we get on a call, conference, video? Okay, we've checked our Wi-Fi. We're getting big in our butt. What's next?
I would say the first thing to check is, are you breathing? We tend to do this waiting pattern of, we call it prep pose. So it's this odd holding your breath, totally tense, which we think makes us ready to go. It's so people can be naturally, I'm here, I'm so happy to be talking to you. Oh, we're on camera? Kind of thing. So all you need to do for that moment is recognize that this is just a moment in time of everything that's in motion. This isn't a delineation between the moment before and the moment after. You don't need to completely harness everything in to do that pursuit of perfection. You can go literally with the flow of movement and make sure you're breathing as a fundamental beginning. I think if you make it more complicated than that, you get in your head and you start to focus on yourself, and then you spend your entire time not connecting with people, but looking at yourself. Oh, am I doing that? Am I doing that thing? Am I doing that thing I do? And people can tell. You can tell. We can tell also because the majority of us do that when we're on camera. So that's what I would say. Put your attention outside of yourself and just remember to breathe. Don't even worry about good breathing at this point. But Casey might have more to elaborate and not let you off the hook so easily.
Well, that's level one. Level one is the practice of taking the focus off of yourself and putting the focus on your audience. Again, it's the same solution to hand gestures, right? Put the focus on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to say and who you're trying to say it to, and get out of your own head. So that's step one. Step two, on a technical level, like thinking about your inhale and your exhale. So when we've always talked about this, and it's more true than ever, we live our lives from here to here, right? Because we're on screen all the time. It's like selfie framing, right? So we think of ourselves almost in that selfie frame of like, I'm from here forward and I have a box, as we already discussed, right? And we forget that not only do you have a body, you are a body. Like you have a body, and that body exists in 360 degrees. So part of what we always talk about with our clients is allowing your body, particularly your rib cage, to expand in 360 degrees when you breathe, right? Because especially when we're stressed out, the belly breath is not really a thing. The belly breath is wonderful in yoga class when you feel very safe and like your chakras are open and it's awesome, right? But when you get tense, when you get stressed out, your belly doesn't want to release because it doesn't want to release your soft bits to predators. But what you can do is let your rib cage start to move freely. So there's a way to practice this. You can either set back in your chair and just feel your back against your chair and just see if you can just start to feel a little movement in your back when you breathe in, as opposed to all the movement coming here in the chest or in the shoulders. Your shoulders don't have to move. The other way you can practice that is by finding your side ribs like right under your armpits and just seeing if you can feel a little bit of movement in the side ribs when you breathe in. Again, letting your shoulders be heavy and relaxed. So that's how to get a pleasurable deep breath as opposed to a labored deep breath like that, like I'm trying to like calm myself down. That's not fun. That doesn't calm you down. It's terrible, right? An easy, full, easy breath that will calm you down. Now then the other piece of that is the exhale. So the exhale is where actual sound happens. And as Julie likes to say, we live in a post-breath culture where we just like don't really breathe when we talk. It's kind of like right here. Like, it's fine. Like, I'm not breathing. I'm not actually putting air out. I don't even know if you could hear what I was saying with that. So
sort of, I got your point. Yes.
So it's very, very, very important, and even really more important than ever, I think, in this medium, to think about supporting your voice on an exhale, as opposed to kind of holding it all into yourself and not putting it out there. Your breath literally carries your voice to the people that you're talking to, in this case, the camera that I'm talking to, the screen that I'm talking to. So thinking about that breath as fuel, and thinking about when you run out of breath, you take more air in. You don't have to like die at the end of a sentence, right? I can put that breath through the end of the sentence. And again, send my voice, send my energy, send my point to the people that I'm talking to.
And then might be why, and Julie, then I want you to continue. It might be why we want people to, why you should be speaking in, I want to say, almost, I don't want to say sound bites, but you know what I mean? Like, speaking so you can make powerful points as opposed to speaking in paragraphs, so that, you know, you've got this breath to take, you know, your great thoughts forward.
That's, well, yeah, I was going to say it's called punctuation. This is something that we forget in our speech patterns right now, is how to end a sentence. But just to quickly go back to this breath and breathing and sending your message, I think about it sometimes like playing. My dad tried so hard to teach me to throw a softball when I was growing up. I just never quite got the hang of it. But what I do remember is you look at the target and you throw through. Same thing if you're throwing a punch, you throw through your target, not just at your target. It's the same thing with breath and on camera. It's not about just sending it right here. It's, can I get it all the way to you guys, even if virtually, but you can feel that I'm sending breath and connecting, and people out there can feel I am connecting to you right now because my breath is going not just to, but through the camera.
Yeah. What other tips do you guys have for us? I know you've probably got a whole bunch. Let's talk about energy. Ooh, yeah, because let's do that. And then I know you've got a 3-circle thing that you're going to walk us through, but energy. I shared in my podcast this week that a friend of mine is sitting in front of, Zoom calls every single meeting. People are at work, and so when someone says to her, "Hey, let's do a Zoom," she's just like, like, this is like, no. Talk about the energy that it takes to do this.
It takes, especially for introverts, it takes a lot of energy. Just because we're on video doesn't mean it doesn't take. And in fact, I've been reading another vocal coach that we really love has been talking a lot about the extra energy it takes when you're on Zoom, because you have to invest in paying attention to people's faces, really listening to their voices. You don't get all of that swirl of immersive energy when you have a face-to-face. Plus, you have to generate a little bit more to connect, not in a big nervous, hey guys, I'm talking about everything on camera, but it does take energy. And I don't I don't know the secret to generating more of that. All I know is how to protect what I do have. And I think it's just really important to pay attention to what you're capable of. And if you start to feel tired, stop with the blaming yourself or how can I hack this or how can I fix this? And maybe it's time to just listen to, I don't need to be on Zoom right now. And let's not forget, sometimes you can be on, sometimes I turn off my camera just so I can focus on words. It doesn't have to be me performing to you to show you how good at Zoom I am. Like, learn how to know your boundaries and take care of yourself is my advice on that.
Well, that's important no matter when and where we're talking about, but it's
exactly
especially important right now because we're seeing this, and we talked about this on Twitter the other day, this blurring of boundaries, right? Usually we have kind of our work persona and we have our home persona. And now all of those areas of our lives have been like smashed together. And you might be dealing with your kids, you might be dealing with your partner, you might be dealing with roommates. Like, we're all dealing with a lot right now. So I think having compassion both for ourselves and having compassion for the people that we're talking about. So like, when, not if, when there are technical difficulties, when there are interruptions, when somebody's like, you know what, guys, I just don't have it today. We just need to be patient with ourselves and each other and have a lot of extra self-compassion right now. It's so important. And I hope that's another thing that we might take out of this is like continuing that when we do get back to being in person, when we do, feel what it's like to be in community with other people again, being really compassionate to each other. It's part of listening. It's part of connecting.
Yeah, absolutely. The 3 circles. Talk to me. Talk to me about that.
Well, so that's another way to think about energy. We actually just published a blog post on it, and we'll post that on Twitter on your account. But the 3 circles is a tool that we love to explain the energy between people when they're talking. So it might be me and one other person or 2 other people in this case, or it might be me and like a whole huge audience. But it's the energy that zings back and forth. And it's a way of framing our habits around that energy. It's from a voice teacher named Patsy Rodenberg, voice teacher, acting coach, brilliant British woman. Go watch her video on YouTube called The Second Circle, Patsy Rodenberg. She's phenomenal.
Will we tweet it out as well?
Yeah, totally. And she's a book about it. But when I first heard this framework, I was like, oh, I can explain so much. So Julie usually in our presentation mode, right? Julie usually talks about the first circle. So I want to throw it to Julie.
So first circle is the keeping to yourself circle. So it's the energy sometimes of the introvert. It can also be the energy of the cool guy. So it's really, it can be disengaged. It's also, there's an element of it of keeping your ideas precious and to yourself. I see I just steepled organically, keeping your ideas precious to yourself. And physically it manifests with, that more collapsed posture, that breath that only goes a little bit in front of you. It's a way of self-protection as always. And I think, possibly a maladaptive coping skill to meter out stimulation. It's also, I think, a stress circle that's coming up for a lot of people right now. This shutdown, you see people kind of going into fight or flight or freeze just in their day to day. So first circle is just really that shutting down. I'm not really here. My thoughts are to myself. My breath is to myself. My posture might be collapsed. So it's safety for those people that feel safe in that realm, which happens to be me, but it doesn't foster connection at all.
Some people look weirdly powerful in first circle. The example that we always use is Anna Wintour. She's got that sort of like perfect helmet of hair and the perfect bangs and usually the big sunglasses. And it's like, I will not come to you, you will come to me. Like they sort of suck energy into themselves.
If you burn with the fire of 1,000 dominations, you can 100% pull off first circle in a professional sphere.
You said the bangs, given that I was futz with bangs. Now I go and get my sunglasses.
It's good. You could totally pull off an Anna Wintour. I could buy it. I could buy it on you. So on the other end of the scale is third circle. So third circle energy is like, it's like the energy of the people at the party who are not really talking to you. They're kind of talking at you, like in a really generalized way. And they're like a little too loud, and they can be like super aggressive and dominant, like invading your space. Or they're like just so in love with the sound of their own voices that they don't ever like let anybody else in. And it feels like being on, it feels like performing. So a lot of people go there when they're trying to perform, right? It can be very off-putting to be on the receiving end of third, even if it's coming, I think, from a benevolent place. So when I first heard this this framework, I was like, oh, like that's what happens to me when I get uncomfortable, when I start trying too hard. Cause like, hi, people pleaser, extrovert, musical theater girl. Like we're always around other people who are very on. And sometimes there comes this thing where like people start being like competitively on, which is just, it's exhausting. Like it's exhausting.
I'm just thinking, Julia, love this could be a new reality show, Battle of the Third Circles.
Oh my God.
I've been to grad school in acting. I have lived the Battle of the Third Circles. And that's when I was just like, you know what I love? First circle. Bye.
So for me, like knowing that that when I get uncomfortable or when I start trying too hard, my tendency is to go towards third circle and over talk or be over energetic or whatever. I have to just kind of rein it in. And again, refocus on the person that I'm talking to, refocus on the thing that I'm trying to accomplish. And also like shine the spotlight on other people and like actively give them a chance to jump in. That is something that I continue to work on and will always continue to work on, because that's like, I know that that's my sort of evil twin communication side of me, is that I hog the spotlight, or I'm too energetic, or I'm trying too hard. Like that's my evil twin. So that's why this was such a helpful framework for me. But so that in between those two,
okay, I was going to say, this is sort of like Monty Hall's Let's Make a Deal. Can we go to door number 2 now?
yes.
I'll take door number 2. This is going to be good.
Julie, speaking of throwing the spotlight, I want you to start talking about second circle, because we let second circle is magic.
Second circle is magic. So first circle, I'm protecting myself, keeping myself to myself. That's a lot of self. Third circle is all about the external, but not focused energy. And it's also, even though I think sometimes it reads as I'm benevolently filling silences, it can also be I am controlling, and I'm controlling by controlling you. And it's a demand for somebody's attention in a specific way. Second circle is taking this all back to this nebulous world of presence and putting our communication in the middle between us. And that can work on camera, that can work in one-on-one conversations, but it's not about you and it's not about me, it's about us. It's creating a way to be participating in a mutual event. So as nebulous as just meditate can be, or just be present can be, that's really as simple and as complex as this all is. It takes some practice, because you've got to get out of your own head, and you've got to give up the safety of self-monitoring, and you have to give up the safety of controlling. But then when you're really taking someone in and speaking so it lands, it's like a tennis ball. If you start running after the tennis ball before it's landed, you don't know what direction to run. Same thing with second circle. Once it lands, once you give something space to land, you can figure out what to do next in this very intuitive way. So it's less effortful. It's just easier. And the connection is something that can live and breathe as its own thing. Again, it's not mine, it's not yours, it's ours. So I literally look at this as, can I put the information I'm talking about or our conversation physically between? Can I put that as the focus, which gets me out of my head, invites you into my information, and creates that presence and connection.
Mm-hmm. And we all know how to go into second circle in our lives. Everybody knows how to do this, right? When we're talking with our best friend, when we're talking, when we're on a phenomenal first date, right? That feeling of just really being with the other person and observing like the small things about how they're communicating with me, and like being fascinated and curious and wanting to know about them, wanting to hear their perspective. Like we all know how to do this. it's about identifying what gets in the way sometimes. And certainly technology and being on camera can get in the way. Like for me, Julie talked about the vulnerability of going out of first circle and into second circle. There's a vulnerability in giving up the performance and giving up the self-monitoring and the do it rightness. Like my perfectionists out there, yeah, like giving up control can feel hard. It's also when it happens, when you experience it, and when you even like pull yourself back or put yourself out, like coming out of first circle or out of third circle, when you start to experience what that feels like with intention, you start to feel like, oh yeah, I can do this. Like I can be present with other people and it feels good. It really does.
Yeah. I'm just sort of listening to all of this and of course putting it through my little networking brain. I mean, you've got the introverts, you've got the extroverts. You think about the back in the day, the in-person networking, or could be a Zoom call now where you're meeting someone for the first time. Are they in first circle so that we are sort of feeling like we can't answer their question, and it doesn't matter what we answer it with, they're not letting us in? Or are they someone who's over there in third circle who is making us like want to collapse into a first circle because we don't know how to answer the question? What do you do? Or like that, like, you know what I mean? When someone like they're just asking it like, oh, what's your job title, kind of, bullshit kind of thing, and we're like, and we defensive and curl back in, rather than genuinely being interested in a tell me about yourself kind of a way.
Yep, totally.
And to be clear, these aren't character flaws that we're talking about. They're habits. So I think that's also really important when we're talking about what works and what doesn't. It's not because someone comes in third circle, they're an automatic not being able to listen jerk face, or if someone's in first circle, they don't know how to connect. It's being aware of habits. Right. In all of this. I mean, when you talk about the what do you do question, I have found many creative ways in my life to not answer that or to turn it into a question I'd prefer to answer, which is my little rebel brain's answer to questions I don't want to talk about.
I want to hear that, but I also will say we also see this on platforms like Twitter. You see these personality types, people like when people are really using the platform, as I joyously think we are using it, more of us are using it again now, is how we are sharing information and talking to each other, not just kind of, as I like to say, fire hose of barf, like just throwing information out there. But you do see this, like the people who jump into conversation and immediately sell themselves without ever being in the community in the conversation before. And then other people, like you feel like you're pulling teeth to get them to say something. Mm-hmm. So you start to see these habits play out. Yeah. Oh, and then here, like, I just see, this is the other thing. Now that I know technology is working. Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Talk to us about that, Julie and Casey. And thanks, Lancy, for chiming in and always being here for Virtual Water Cooler.
Yes, indeed. Hi. Well, the way that we think about this is, I already mentioned the phrase evil twins, right? So communication superpowers and evil twins is something that we talk about a lot. And the other thing that we like to talk about is your core communication values. Communication core values, we sort of mix up those two. I do anyway. Communication core values as a way of kind of gaining in self-knowledge, knowing what your habits are and knowing what you bring to the table as something that's totally unique. This goes back to the authenticity conversation.
Also, the thing about habits is they developed because they work. Mm-hmm. All of our habits that we've built up in life, we've built up because in some situation they served us.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to take on defining what a character flaw is.
We don't have enough. We don't have enough
time
quarantine for that conversation.
But I would just say habits usually develop with the best intentions, as opposed to trying to be a jerk.
Yeah.
For most people, yes. Well,
Go ahead. Casey.
So one of the habits that we end up talking about a lot is, and this is not a personality habit, it's sort of a technical habit, the habit of vocal fry. So one of the things that when we started our company, one of the major catalysts for starting our company is the conversation in the media about women's voices in particular, and just how girly and annoying women's voices are. And they're so off-putting. It's like nails on a chalkboard. And part of that conversation kept referencing vocal fry and upspeak. So vocal fry is like, there's like a few different manifestations of vocal fry. This is like the Kardashian style vocal fry. But then there's also the vocal fry that happens when I've lowered my voice so that no one accuses me of having too girly or feminine of a voice. And then I like finally lower it past where I can no longer bring my chords together in the way that they're designed to, because that's not my vocal range. But it is a response to a criticism of, you don't want your voice to sound too young and girly, even though this actually might be a very authentic vocal place for some people, because that's how their vocal cords are shaped, or how they're, right? But it's like, if I want people to take me seriously, then I have to change my habits, right? Well, then you go into vocal fry land and you're criticized for having vocal fry. You can't win. So these vocal habits that we create, and these communication habits that we create through our lives, we create in concert with other human beings. We create in conversation. We create by observing our different environments and what works and what doesn't. And then we both consciously and subconsciously make choices to show up in a way that will help us to survive, because that's like the base level. Like our brain wants us to survive. Yeah. And B, once we get past basic survival, we want to start succeeding. So we like make adjustments to try to succeed. And sometimes those adjustments work really well in one environment, like Kardashian vocal fry, like in certain environments, this is going to mark me as like part of the tribe, and it's going to be very successful. In other environments, they're going to be like, ew, I hate her. Right.
Well, you think about Margaret Thatcher and
oh, totally.
Like master in terms of changing her voice and doing that successfully to become the leader of the party and the leader of a country. So sometimes I think from working with you guys, as soon as you said vocal fry, I'm like, okay, that's just when I fry my vocal cords, because I sort of talk at that flat Canadian accent.
Pacific Northwest. It's 100%. As I've always said, you're one of my people, and that's just the way. I mean, it's fishing village. It's get stuff done. It's be part of the get stuff done tribe. It's all of those things, again, things that worked. And we're not just talking about things that worked in your life in the present or in your past. These are generational things too.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Well, and interestingly, young women are on the forefront of vocal trends. They've actually studied this. There's a New York Times article. I'll put it on Twitter as well. Young women tend to be the sort of the trend setters of new vocal patterns, both slang and sounds. And while they're only in the community of young women, of course, everybody rolls their eyes and dismisses them, and it's crap. And then when they filter into the general population, often when men do them, they're fine. And you still denigrate the young women for doing it. Ira Glass did a phenomenal episode on This American Life on vocal fry, because let me tell you, and Ira Glass would say the same thing, he is the king of vocal fry. He has so much vocal fry, but it was his young women co-hosts who were getting helpful emails from audience members about how annoying their vocal fry was. Ira Glass never got that feedback. So but this goes to how we listen to people. We listen to people through bias, just as we look at people through bias. So that's what we have to interrogate on a cultural level of what kind of voices do we find authoritative? What kind of voices do we find powerful? What kind of voices do we find sexy or charismatic or intelligent or whatever? Like we're broadening the definition.
So I'm laughing. So one of my coping mechanisms right now, maybe not over scheduling Zoom calls so I can keep my energy up, but is also a limit, and reason for doing virtual water cooler was like limit time on social, and also and stay social. But I also limit the amount of news I take in. This gets to your point. So when I listen to the news, I listen on NPR. And if I'm going to listen to like news in the morning, I wait for that hour and I listen to the BBC. All right. So BBC World News was maybe hearing like how the world's like going to shit, hearing it with a British accent makes me feel better. But classic today, what you said in terms of describing things. And as soon as you started to talk and I covered my mouth not to laugh, it's because on the BBC, the broadcaster, she referred to the president. What we'd probably say over here was he lied. She said his vocal largesse. Oh, the best. Did he lie? No, just vocal largesse.
There's a lot of largesse-ness there.
But I just thought it was like that. Just kind of. Vocal largesse, people. Vocal largesse. There's will be our word of the day. I am having so much fun. I want to leave everybody with like, right, they're going to be on. Let's just give them some reminders and any other tips besides getting big in your butt, breathing, getting getting this. Oh, what you tell us what your stand is that you use? I'm on 4 coffee table books. That's where my laptop is. I
have the same stack of books that I used to get off my bookshelf every time I had one of these meetings, but now I have let's see, this very classy stand that angles my computer quite nicely. So that's what I have.
Excellent. And I have, just so everyone knows, and if they haven't seen the picture on Twitter, I have a side table light positioned right behind my laptop, and the light that is usually on behind me here, I turn off. I'm Julie, tail your tip, because I'm just going to disappear so I can say one other tip for everybody.
Yep. In my books, I use books. I use them because it's really easy to adjust them. And also, I mean, I've got some big books. I have Shakespeare's First Folio. I was mentioning yesterday, I've got a very large Chekhov biography.
I love big books and I cannot.
Exactly. And then as I was also mentioning, all the self-help books that I've purchased over the years that I actually never intend to read. I just kind of said, you know what? I know how they can self-help me. They can pull up my computer.
That is the best. That is the best use for some of those books. Okay, so that's the other thing that I was telling you guys.
Oh yeah.
So I take my shoes off, and I have that underneath my, I would say desk/dining room table. And when I'm on these calls, I put my feet on that, and that reminds me not to fidget or look at my face or try and fix my bangs for the upteenth time.
It's good. It focuses your attention somewhere. And as I said at the very beginning, I'm not sure if we were recording yet, but it reminds you have feet. And we forget we have feet because they become victims of all of our nervous habits. And since we don't look at them, that's where a lot of the shifting comes from. And that sort of thing is we start to not stand on our feet, but sort of imagine that they don't balance themselves, or that the gripping, for sure, that's a stress survival instinct. The bird, or I mean, you see animals do this all the time with gripping. It's all about reminding yourself to relax your feet, because again, like letting your butt be big, it gives this cascade of permission for the rest of your body to release versus tension that kind of starts literally from the ground up.
There we go. Big butts and letting your butt be
big feet.
And not gripping your feet, breathing. You guys are so awesome. And here, there we go. You know what? Can you take another question? We've got a question here. Yeah. Okay. Tosca, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely, Tosca. It is better to have a conversation standing sometimes. I do this a lot. That's one of the reasons why I turn off my camera. If I need to think through something and I need to be in motion and I don't want to distract, I think that's great. And the other thing is you can set up standing desks. Mm-hmm. You can set up a standing posture. And like Casey's demonstrating right now, this also gives this amazing space, this feeling of space.
No.
But no, you're back. It adjusted. It gives a feeling of space behind you. So when you find out what your comfort zone is, again, you don't need to lock yourself into one position and there's permission to do all of these things. This is why we work on principles, not recipes. Because if your feet are on the floor, you're letting your feet be big, you're breathing, you can stand, you can sit, you can do whatever the heck you want. Those aren't details that are really significant.
So I had to discover this because I've been hosting the last couple of weekends. I've been hosting these like virtual variety shows. So I have a few different places that I know that I can put my computer and have it be the right kind of framing. Now, right now I'm backlit, which is something that you don't want to be. You don't want to be backlit because then you can't see me. But I just wanted to demonstrate. It's sitting on my record player. So it's like I figured out that my record player on my bookshelf is the right height for me to actually stand and talk to people, and I can back up and like you can see a little bit more of my body, right? Or when when I need to play something on the piano, I have it right here in my window. So I have like 3 spots now that I know in my house I can have my computer and be like talking to people in a way that I'm framed. So like just experiment. That's the whole point. Experiment and figure out what works for you right now. And if your kids run across the frame or your partner decides to make a loud meal in the kitchen, like it's all good. We're all rolling with the punches.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But as I say on that one, and if you're really worried and you don't want someone to walk in, you got to think like the mafia table, like no one can come in behind you. You got to place yourself in the corner. Mm-hmm. So you see every entry point so that you can go, the hand up, or you can put your, call on mute or whatever. But like, get yourself in the corner. Think The Godfather.
I like that.
I love that.
Mafia table.
I think sitting at the mafia table might be my new favorite way to just kind of express being aware of your surroundings. I love this. I will credit you, and I'm going to use that.
You use that, and now I got to figure out how many more books I have to stack up so that I can stand and give a presentation. How many books to stack?
Well, you got to be careful. I've hit max with books, and that's a tower that's maybe not necessarily as stable as you would hope it would be. I'll just put it that way.
I don't have that many self-help books to stack up. Tosca, thank you for your question. Lancy, thank you for chiming in. Anyone else got any other questions before we wrap up today's like super fun? Thank you for being so, I want to say, patient with our technology at the beginning. And I'm glad it was working for you guys. And I'm glad I checked it to make it work again. Little Virgo here. But this was super fun. Casey and Julie, you come back and do this again?
Yes. Anytime. You hang out with our Kelly. R. Kelly, we love you.
We have a very special breath when we talk about you. It goes a little like
Kelly, possessive. Not no.
We have to stop. I have to share the story. When I had said to someone, he said, "You wrote a book. What is it called?" And I'm like, "Build Your Dream Network." And it was this bartender when I was traveling to Austin to speak at the law school. And he's like on Amazon, and he's like, "Oh, is that your book?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, did you see the book after it?" And it's, just got Finding R. Kelly or whatever was like the R. Kelly book was right after my book. So that's also why I'm laughing. Oh my God. Hey, thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks for coming.
Hope everything's good I think you're in Brooklyn. So hope everything is good and you're well and your family's well and all the rest of us. Tosca, thank you for that great question on standing. And that's really given me an idea. Thank you very much. I want to say, Casey, for showing us your setup. So now I'm like, oh, okay. Now what can I do?
And I don't want to pierce the veil right now. We'll just pretend like I live in a world that has like plants and B. Arthur candles all the time.
I just got to make sure that stays closed so it doesn't be like, oh, that's the best. You can see my bourbon supply there, Casey. All right. That's what we'll do next time. We'll move from the virtual water cooler in the morning. We'll go later. All right. Oh yeah, Queens. Okay. Yes. Queens. in the house. So let us know how's everything in Queens, Lancy, and hope everyone's well there, and stay well. Okay, ladies, thank you for so much for being here. I'll see you and chat with you soon. And we'll do this again. This was super fun.
Awesome.
Yay.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks for all the tips.
All
Bye.
right. Mwah.